This is the Arlington County Board of Equalization hearing. There are 4 cases on the agenda and 7 board members present taking the quorum. First case is RPC 1100603A at 2121 Northwest Norland. Leone, you're going to present for the appellant. You can start with your 8 minutes. Tell us about the property.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Armin Yanoni, agent for the owner. The subject property is a 208-unit Class A apartment building. It was built in 2010 and is located in the East Falls Church submarket. The main issue, that we're bringing to the board with this appeal is the purchase of the property. The property is currently assessed at just under $120 million, and the property sold in an arm's length transaction for $100 million. On page 70 of 230 of the BOE memo, or 68 of 207, 70 of 230 if you're looking at the footer, but the actual PDF document, the page numbers differ. So I'm going to cite kind of both page numbers. And that's where we have a summary of kind of the timeline and the facts surrounding this sale. And just for, a little bit of background, the previous owner put this property on the market in Q3 of 2023 through Berkadia, a well-known brokerage firm, and received multiple bidders. The new owner made a bid for $100 million, which was accepted and solidified via an LOI dated November 15th of 2023, which can be found on page 73 of 230 in our submission, or if you're looking at the PDF number, 71 of 207. This is a fully signed LOI dated November 15th, which on the following pages, starting on 74 of 207 or 76 of 230, if you're looking at the footer, you could see the agreement of purchase and sale that was entered by the owner and the new owner, the previous owner and the new owner, which was legally binding for that $100 million purchase price. And this was signed and executed on November 21st of 2023. From then, due to, financing and other closing procedures, the sale did not close until early 2024. However, it is clear that this purchase price was agreed upon and negotiated within the assessment period. The error in the county assessment is that they failed to acknowledge an arm's length transaction, which is of the highest evidence of fair market value and must be considered. So we're here today to ask the board to consider this $100 million purchase price, which is a big difference from the current assessment, and lower it again in consideration of the fact that this purchase price was agreed to and negotiated upon within 2023, and we have provided the fully executed documents within our submission dated within the assessment period that shows without a doubt that the fair market value agreed upon by the previous owner and the buyer was $100 million as of the time of the assessment. And it was 100% arm's length. The buyer was under no pressure to buy, and the seller was under no pressure to sell. There were multiple bidders, and it was brokered by a well-known brokerage firm. So this sale surely should be considered of the highest evidence of the fair market value of the property as of 1/1/24. And for it's surprising to see that the county just completely ignoring the sale in their analysis. And unless my colleagues have anything to add, I will end it there.
I'll just add that there's been 3 of these types of cases already brought before the board this year. The Xerox building, Roslyn Gateway, Ballston 1, all with sales that closed August of 23, November of 23, January of 2024. In all 3 instances, the board voted to reduce the value to the purchase price. Our sale here is arguably the most arm's length of all of them. There's no change of use here at this property. It's a stabilized apartment building. It's going to stay a stabilized apartment building. It was brought to the market, and the market determined it was worth $100 million in November of 2023. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you both. Ms. Roskin for the county, please.
Thank you, board. Thank you, Grant and Amon. So at first, when I looked at this particular property and completed the summary page, looked at the income and expense that was submitted for 2023, we believe that our original January 1 NOI is well supported by the 2023 INE. Yes, the sale was brought to our attention through this appeal. We were not aware of it, even though the letter of intent states that it was dated November 2023. We were not aware of this. It was recorded in February of 2024. Which is after our analysis period, after we have valued all of our properties. It's after our January 1 assessment date. Also, I did read through the letter of intent. This sale does need further research. As I was reading through it, it was based off of the purchase of another sale, the Point at Germantown Station, which is located in Maryland. We need to figure out why was this, is there a connection with that? I did a brief research this morning and found out that both the buyer and seller for this property are exactly the same as the buyer and seller for the Point at Germantown Station. I don't know. We need to do further investigation of this. Once again, this sale was not part of our analysis because it occurred after January 1. I'm just going to further note again that our NOI supports the reported 2023 INE. Maybe the seller got a really good deal on this sale at 100 million. I don't know. Thank you. I'm open for questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members? Mattson.
First, for the department, I think this is the question I had when I read this the other day, and I think you've answered, but I want to make real sure. This is what you call a multi-parcel sale, and you just mentioned the Germantown parcel. Or is it just those two tied up in this situation, that one buyer, that one seller, or are there any others?
The recorded sale is for 3 parcels, which is a multi-parcel sale. Those 3 parcels are in Arlington County, located right next to each other. The subject improvements sit on those 3 parcels. That's what I meant by multi-parcel property. This other property is located in Maryland. I don't know if they're connected or not. It needs further research.
Okay, great. Second question, easier one. In column D2, for the retail, there's no pass-through number there, income. Why? No, I've never seen a retailer not, pay taxes, double, triple, quadruple net. What's up with that?
If I recall, let's see, I'm going through the email, or maybe if I recall talking to Armand, the report, there was 50 that the pass-through, or not the pass-through, the miscellaneous, if you know that, the miscellaneous of about 50,000. I believe that is the pass-through for the retail.
In D2, I see nothing for miscellaneous, just a dash.
That's the January 1 original assessment. So maybe it was lumped into other. It might have been lumped in together with other, because if you note, historically, they were only report one INE and they put all of the apartment and retail together. So they're probably combining income and expenses.
In D1.
Yeah, so it's not separated is the point.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for the county. Ms. Ruskin, you said that you just researched this morning. Is this the first you're looking into the sale?
No, what I meant is I noticed the letter of intent made note of this other property, the Point at Germantown Station. And I overlooked that the first time, and then I looked at it again, and it's like, okay, why are they bringing up the Point at Germantown Station in this letter of intent? And that's when I went to look up where is this property located? And I just happened to stumble across the fact that the
Okay, I
buyer
got
and seller of this property and that one are the same.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're
Okay,
connected or
I
not.
got that part. My question then would be, so you knew about this before. Why is this any different than when somebody gives us their financials for 2023? This was information that you could have considered
The
prior
point,
to.
the point I was trying to make is that this sale occurred after January 1.
And I understand that, but the argument, and you have certainly seen how the board has responded to other similar sale properties. I mean, it was signed in November. So are you just saying that it's just a policy that you just disregarded that and that has no bearing on the assessment for this year?
It's something that we will use in connection for next year's assessment. Because
Disregard.
it's a sale that occurred after January
I
1.
understand that. I
So
understand
it's
that.
going to be
It's
used for next
stated,
year.
Testified, right. So that you're saying that this had no bearing for you this year.
I'm saying that we looked at it and we also looked at we used the income approach for these properties.
I'll
Looked
take
at
that.
for
as a no.
2023 and that's why the January
Thank you.
23.
You can stop talking.
Sure.
Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, Grant, with, to the question about the other property, I mean, it looks like they're just basically stating that they're gonna use the same contract
Yeah.
that they used for another property. It
That's
doesn't
what-
seem like it's a
That's what you're
multi-parcel sale or anything like that, but, can you say, like, as far as, was there another bidder that was higher than, this buyer that, you know, they didn't
I
use?
don't know. It warrants
Well,
further
I'm asking Grant.
investigation.
I'm asking Grant.
Yeah, Mr. Hoffman, that's absolutely 100% correct. Panzer sold the Germantown property to UDR in June of 2021, so they likely are using the same contract. And 100 million for the property we're talking about today was the highest bid.
So it's,
Okay, thanks.
we're just gonna use that contract.
Any other questions?
No.
You have a question?
Quick.
Okay, Mr. Yates.
Grant, when did they have all the information concerning this offer or purchase agreement, letter of intent?
November of 2023.
All right, no final questions. Ms. Ruskin, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and take a minute to wrap up, please.
Sure, thank you. We are just further supporting the original January 1 assessment at 119 million. It's supported by the 2023 income and expense statement. We feel that the sale needs further investigation, and we also believe that it might be a really good sale. They got a really good deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yanani, if you take a minute to wrap up, please.
Yes, thank you. So I would just say that, this arm's length transaction is by far the highest and best evidence for the fair market of about value of this property. And I would also like to say that, we are always more than happy and very responsive with the county to any questions that they might have about these properties. We inspected this property on August 2nd of this year. Our appeal was filed on April 15th. We had not received any questions for clarification about this sale from the county and did not expect this to come up at this hearing. However, we provided all of the relevant documents. So we would encourage the board to review those and make their own determination of if, the sale is worth considering. Unless Grant has anything to add, that's all for me.
Mr. Steinhauser, anything additional?
Nothing to add. Thanks.
All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, it's just among the board. Where's everybody on this?
Well, the reference, what this is saying is we're gonna use a similar contract. That's all. It has nothing to do with any Maryland property.
Just factoid that it's not relevant.
Yeah.
And they know each other, the buyer and seller. That's it.
Mr. Yates.
Barnes, we've heard in the past, isn't it under state requirement, look at the sale price.
Sure,
Yeah,
consider the sale price, sure.
hey,
They must have missed it, but they also check land records. So whenever something goes to record, they always do that.
Right, but they would have gotten that after.
Yeah, but that would have been in March or
Yeah,
late
that would've been-
February.
They
Yeah.
wouldn't have caught it by land record.
And then
And-
to the point of the January 1st being the cutoff, it's so close. It was under contract. They even, I mean, if you read the LOI, they're even firm on the deposit in December. So
Right.
that's a committed buyer. At that point, you're just going through the process of settlement. Yeah.
And we raised it last meeting to the sale.
Yeah, but that of course was during the assessment year, and this is flops over. But you're
Yeah.
saying the November LOI, if they default, they lose their deposit, and that's
The study period ended 12/22.
12/20.
So
Oh,
they
that's
had, like,
interesting.
They had a large deposit up that
Yeah.
went hard, so they were
Yeah.
committed to buying it at that point.
They had $2,750,000 deposit.
So I don't have any issue with the date. I mean, I think it's
we're now.
close to January 1 as you're gonna get.
Anybody else?
Okay.
I'll motion to reduce the assessment to 100 million.
A second.
Nothing, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. The assessment's reduced to the 100 million based on the sales price. Thank you. Okay, next case up is RPC 150780025 at 1200 North Irving. Mr. Unani, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be presenting this one.
Oh, Mr. Strickler, okay.
So this one is the Beacon at Clarendon, and I'll hopefully make this very simple. We appreciate the assessor's revisions. This really comes down to a cap rate issue. We've argued this pretty exhaustively for other cases, and don't need to beat a dead horse. So again, we appreciate the assessor's revisions. We're okay with it. We disagree about the cap rate, but if that's going to be addressed, it'll be addressed at another place. Thanks.
Ms. Roskin, for the county, please. Can you unmute yourself, please?
For this particular property, we did a reconstruction after reviewing the 2023 I&E statements and historical statements. We took a look at the year over year for the apartment rents, noticed that they were increasing year over year. That's what we portrayed in the column F1 after analysis of the rent roll for the apartment. And also looked at what their vacancy is. When you look at the combined vacancy for both their apartment and retail, it's still less than what we are using. We're using a vacancy of 428,000. They only reported 376,000. We grew the expenses because also since the rents were increasing, we assumed that the expenses would increase for this property also. And so that's what columns F1 and F2 represent. Noted also that there was a higher vacancy for the retail property, so I discounted it for the excess vacancy. There is a future tenant coming in. However, that rent was not factored in because I assume they took possession or they occupied in 2024, which we didn't have that data when we originally did this assessment. Okay, and also we do not recognize the personal property tax. Confirmed that there are no, I confirmed with the property manager on site that there are no furnished units, so we do not deduct for personal property tax below the line. And as for the cap rate, Our cap rates are well supported. The cap rates that the agents are using are based on fourth quarter analysis. We don't have those fourth quarter analysis. We're relying on the third quarter for 2023, and our ranges are well within their range of 3.75 to 8%. We're using a combined, I believe we're using 5.25% for the apartments. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from board members? None? Okay, any final comments, Ms. Ruskin?
No, ma'am.
Okay, any final comments, Mr. Steinfelder?
Nope, nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, it's just among the board. Mr. Hub.
I mean, one of the things I pointed out early in this season was the shortcomings of the cap rate study is being dated August, projecting through the end of the year and to a valuation date of January. No discussion in there of, 50 or 100 basis points of interest rate changes by the Federal Reserve. So it was kind of a exogenous event that I would hope that they could have gone back to Peter Corpaz, updated his study, put a new date on it, and run with that. So we're kind of lacking some evidence to support the cap rate between August and January. So I don't know how we get there. And the other thing I'd point out is, if you run the numbers on the last property we just looked at, it's like a 6.7 cap rate, say, based on 2023 actuals. So
The 100 million is kept out.
yeah, I mean, now that property is, I would not call it better located. I think this one is better located. So this is more the metro kind of prime cap rate, but I think it's somewhere probably more closer to a 5.5 cap rate than a 5.25.
Of course, it's sympathetic to that, but we do this a lot. And I mentioned this before, I know months ago, that in residential, there's a lag here. And that's just, there's a lot of numbers and not enough people to run them. And it's a little bit messy, but this is an annual process and they'll catch up the next year, which is, of course, the argument for the last case. Sure, it was after our analysis, but we'll pick it up next year and consider it very seriously. I thought that was the very best response that the department could make. And the same, now what's interesting here is that as interest rates are now going down this calendar year, it turns out ironically that the trend moved fast and they may not get the benefit of it, this owner. But this is not it can't be a perfect science. It's estimates and best estimates and based on data that's changing, ever changing. And I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, you know what else I noticed is there's no concessions in column G2. So I don't know if that's just an oversight or if every year they had concessions except in the argument this year. So
Could be the prior years that were COVID years. And
yeah, right.
This was
Maybe that's not needed. So,
it's too bad didn't ask, but it's too late.
Greg, I agree with you on the cap rates, but that hadn't been.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That hasn't been what's been practiced.
I mean, the other thing on the surface is like 430,000 a unit is kind of in the range.
Yeah.
Right. It's not an unrealistic number, and that's what it's assessed at right now.
And I would add that we're seeing chronically quality, well-located apartment complexes going up 3, 4, 5%, and this is flat.
I think Lori did a good job with her.
The revision is good, yeah.
I just check one thing before we vote. We're on the high-rise table on cap rates.
Right.
I mean, when I look at this building, it's like 5 stories.
We can, no,
But I guess it's what side you're looking at. The neighborhood side is 5, and then it goes up.
yeah, on Washington.
So you're basing it on
It's bigger,
the
taller.
the tallest side. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're in the right table.
Number 85,300,000.
Mendes, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Assistance reduced to the county provides number of 85,354. Thank you both.
Thank you, board. Have a good morning.
Thank you, board.
Okay, do we have Mr. Peralta and Mr. Tucci?
So come up.
I know.
Full of it. It's like Christmas.
I know. Every year. Okay, there we go. All right, the next case on the agenda is RPC 15087-028 at 3501 Fairfax Drive. Mr. Tucci, start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property.
Morning, board. Michael Tucci on behalf of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. As you all probably know, this is the headquarters building of the FDIC there in Arlington. It's five buildings with an attached residence center that's used mainly for folks coming in to do training at the center. It's an owner-occupied property, approximately 700,000 square feet of office space and 350 rooms in the SRC. Given that it's an owner-occupied property, what we understand the methodology to be on the part of the department is to basically assess a market value to this property by using market rental rates, market cap rate, market expenses, and then it applies a vacancy rate that is not market. We've had this discussion, I think, for the last 3 or 4 years that the methodology, as we understand it, or as we think it should be applied, is market across the board. If the department is going to use a market rental rate, a market cap rate, market expenses, then it needs to use market vacancy, and it uses 8% here. When we all know that the vacancy rate in this neighborhood is closer to 20%, maybe even a little higher than that right now. And in our calculations, we used a very conservative 16% vacancy rate, which reduces the NOI by over $2 million, which is on a 7.5% cap rate is about $26 million in value. We're just asking that the board or that the department be consistent across the board. If it's going to use a market rental rate, a market cap rate, it should use a market vacancy rate as well. And it should be increased to at least 16%. And the assessment should be reduced by at least 26 million, just for the vacancy adjustment alone, leaving all of the other metrics used by the department the same.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Peralta for the county, please.
Yes, thank you. For this property, the appellant appealed mainly the office portion. As you see, they're in agreement with the lodging portion. Although, when reviewing this, I did look at, I guess, the comparables and the hotel guidelines, and it showed that the land alone per key is $50,000 per key. We're valuing the lodging portion at $20,000 per key. So we'll definitely have to take a look at that going forward. When looking at the office portion, we do know and agree that about 700,000 square feet of office NLA is on the property amongst I believe the 5 buildings, as the appellant mentioned. And then just comparing last year's assessment to this year's assessment, we did make a reduction in I guess, the other space. We used $27 last year for the other space, and we're using $25 for the current assessment for the other space. And that, along with the change in cap rate, affected a $32 million change from last year to this year. And in addition to that, I believe the appellant was saying that we should use a market vacancy. When looking at this further, when comparing what we valued in 2024 to the submarket, we are using below market rents for this property and above market expenses for this property. Just looking at the comparables, the peers, if you will, with the owner-occupied properties in the county. There's a few in the county, and just looking at the expenses alone, those expenses that I've seen range from $6.25 to upwards of $12 at the max. For this property, we're using $16.50 in the original assessment and $16.50 in the test. So, you know, we're applying our guidelines based on how we equitably assess all the other owner-occupied spaces or buildings in the county, and we're applying what we saw as far as the rents that could be achieved for this property. Again, we're using submarket rents. We did make an adjustment with the retail based on the information that was provided for the new tenancy that they leased space to, I believe, a barbecue chicken place, and that was at $52 a square foot. And then the 7-Eleven that we have there already, which came out to an average of $50.48. So you see that change from the original assessment to the test. And therefore, you know, our test ended up supporting the original assessment, and therefore that's what the county stands by. And we asked the board to confirm the original assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from board members?
Yeah, hey, Rob, you use the 8%. Is that the guideline?
Yes.
And for an owner occupied, is it logical? Is the owner's argument logical that with an owner occupied, instead of the guideline, you should look at the average vacancy of other buildings in the area? Does that make sense?
Not really. The owner occupied space, they can't lease it out to anyone else. When comparing that to a property that has the issues of vacancy, you know, that's not really apples to apples, I see. I think in this case, and with the other owner occupied spaces, they're valued equitably amongst, you know, that class. So I wouldn't agree to that, no.
Let me take a different spin on this topic of vacancy, because of course that's the key of the appellant's argument. Where does the 8% where does the 8% come from this kind of building? I mean, what was the thinking in DRA when coming up with this late last year? Good question. And maybe Derek, I'm sure, is on. Maybe it's more appropriate for him. You guys decide.
Well, so just to give you a better understanding, when we're looking at the average of the county, before we had increments of 5% per, I guess, per level, 5, 10, 15, 20. Where the average fell for the county was below that threshold in which we give the excess vacancy below the line. So therefore, in conjunction with our cap rate change, in conjunction with looking at the overall, I guess, market in office, we did make that change and gave excess a vacancy, if you will.
A very highly vacant building. Sure you did. But again, where does the 8% come from for this sort of building in this kind of location?
That I can add to that, Rob. This is Derek Dubay. I'm the assessor for the county. When looking at vacancy, we created a model or a table that we use that spans different vacancy rates, and it allows for us to value properties that are 100% occupied that aren't owner occupied as well. So properties that are reporting, fully occupied leases, we're able to at least slide that scale based on, average market rates and slide our table to account for properties at all levels. That allows us to keep our NOIs off of reported income expense statements in line with actual NOIs. If you inflate a vacancy rate to an average vacancy rate, then you're pushing numbers around on a reported income and expense statement to get to an NOI. But we try to keep that as accurate as possible in sliding that table and providing different levels of vacancy based off of what's reported when it comes to owner occupied properties. Obviously, we don't have market information showing us that they attempted to lease a portion of it because they occupy the entire structure. But at the same time, we are allowing for that vacancy of similar properties that are fully occupied. And that's not just owner occupied, it's properties that are 100% leased are also in that group as well.
Yeah, there's no distinction for owner occupied versus fully leased outright.
Correct.
And so the contention is that the vacancy of office buildings in Arlington on 1/1/24 was probably in excess of 20%, but perhaps not this kind of building, this effective age and metro accessible. It was less than that based on what you had gotten in from just it's lesser. Is that correct?
Correct. We still do make adjustments to that table. I mean, in the prior years, I think the low range was at 5%, but as we've seen, vacancy increase over the past couple of years, we adjusted that table to allow us to account for different levels of vacancy being reported, which in our methodology, hopefully gives us a better NOI or a more accurate NOI on properties such as this.
So that's what you're aiming at is NOIs year over year. Okay, that answers it. Thank you.
Mr. Lawson?
Hey, Derek.
Yep.
Fair market values, what would a willing buyer pay a willing seller? So if they were to sell this, I guess it would be vacated. And so the vacancy would be 0. See, I think an owner occupied is different than a fully leased.
Yeah, that goes into an argument of, would you consider this to be a single tenant, property that would need to be backfilled? Could it be broken up into multi-tenanted? There's several different arguments there that, we've heard. But until that happens, that's if it goes 100% occupied, we value property, or sorry, 100% vacant, we value properties every year that are 100% vacant. So we would still use the income approach on those properties as well.
Let me ask the owner, where'd you get 16%?
Just doubled what the county used, and we were trying to be conservative, basically. If we look at this very simply, if we're trying to create sort of a quasi market for this building that's owner occupied, it needs to have a market vacancy rate applied to it, and the market vacancy rate in this submarket is excess of 20%, and we conservatively used 16% because it was below that and double what the county used.
Other questions? Mr. Yates?
This is, in the past, we've talked a lot about the layout of this, the common areas and really what that's worth. But, we mentioned, and this may not bear on this right now, but the lodging, could that be separated off as a separate lodging facility?
No. The reason is it doesn't have any restaurant. It uses the main part of the building, the office part of the building for all its classrooms, a lot of its common area. There's a very small lobby at the SRC, but it doesn't have any food service, or it basically has a giant next door or the cafeteria that is part of the FDIC office component.
So it's not really.
Questions?
No, it wasn't built
Okay.
to be a standalone.
You've answered. Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay, Mr. Peralta, if you take a minute to wrap up then, please.
Yes, thank you. The value that the appellant is asking would drop the improvements down to 32,228,100 if you keep the land the same. Just doing a test based on the information that the appellant put forth, keeping the rents the same, keeping changing vacancy to 16%, that would, and reducing the expenses down to market, which is $12, which I mentioned before, had the comparables, capping that at 7.5. The value comes out to 173,189,231, much higher than what we have it assessed for in the original assessment. So we asked that the board confirm the original assessment. And again, the lodging portion, again, isn't enough to equate to our land comparison where it's 50,000 per key. We're valuing at 20,000 per key. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tucci, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Sure. On the lodging part, I know there are some new board members here, or relatively new board members here, that probably don't know this, but the lodging is valued pursuant to a settlement agreement that was entered into between the county and the FDIC in 2013. So it is not, the lodging portion is not a fair market value analysis. It is pursuant to the formula that's contained in the settlement agreement, and that's it. And that is whatever that comes out to be is what the lodging portion is valued at.
Okay, thank you both. All right, it's just among the board.
Yeah, you know what I wish I had, and I didn't think of it till now, listening to the testimony. How would a private industry appraiser handle this? Would he say you go with whatever the standard of the county is, or do you place it where the surrounding area is? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how.
Private corporate campus.
Yeah.
You'd have to look throughout the country and look at other 7-acre corporate campuses.
Really?
And try to equalize it. Yeah, because there's probably just there's not too many of these in Arlington.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, similar to a university, right? It's the size of
I
George
think that's
Mason.
what's come
next
up
door.
in past years. That's who the market would probably be.
Yeah.
Higher education. Or private school.
But I mean, you would probably compare that with cost, right? You could do it like we do with the senior living facilities.
Yeah.
Where you just do the cost approach, and at cost, it's $228 a square foot is the assessment. It's like, what are we going to build that for today?
Yeah.
That,
450, 500, 600, like it's half replacement cost is what the assessment is at a minimum, at a maximum.
I wonder if it should even be appraised based on income.
Probably not. Yeah.
Since it's owner
It's unique.
occupied, yeah.
Yeah, it's like once you put up a security perimeter and you have armed guards and you have check stations, it's no longer like a normal office building
Not
with a
that
cap
good
rate.
security guard.
more than that, the lodging,
Yeah.
the office is so integrated.
Right.
That's the key. I mean, you can get rid of the guards, but you can't get rid of the cafeteria.
As an economic unit too, it's like they own the giant parking lot, and those are under assessed. So,
Yeah.
you know, that it provides expandability for the campus,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, which is probably part of this potential reason why they acquired all that land to begin with. So I'm okay. I was okay last year with the number. I'd be okay with the reduction this year.
Well, from my experience with this building for so many years, this is really the lowest I've seen that is. It's always been like 250 getting confirmed by the board. I know they're really benefiting from the lodging part because, you know, $26, the rate room is just sinking. But yeah, I'm okay with it for the city.
I wanted to spend a couple of seconds though on the essence of the argument, and that is we have fair market value on everything except the vacancy. But we're treating them exactly like every other building. And
Had this come up before where, you know, we're using the guidelines. You know, people come in and go, right, but it's owner occupied, we should get more. Like nowhere does in
No, no.
statute does it say we should give you more than.
yeah, owner occupied is not compelling to me, but there's a lot of buildings more than 8%, but this is how everyone's being treated. And it is an increase, percentage wise, a significant increase from last year. vacancy, so.
Unanimous, the county is,
I lost the audio there.
the county, or the county's value of 165,396,500 has been confirmed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
both.
you.
Okay, the last case on the agenda is RPC 34020-251 at 251 18th Street South. That has a sign reduction on it, so that is removed from the agenda.
Okay.
It's the calendar.
Thank you.
Any business from any board members?
Did you said it's removed for today. Are we going to revisit it?
Said there was a signed agreement. It's
Signed, that's what I missed. I just heard the today part. Thank you.
okay. Okay, we will stand adjourned at 9:47, reconvene next Tuesday, October 29th for our last meeting and virtual board meeting. Thank you.